Welcome to episode 3 of this Ork Bomba Box to Battle series. We're continuing with part 4 detailing, and this time we're going to look at the Ork Checkerboard pattern. So I'm just going to do a quick video here looking at how I did it on the underside of the wing of the Dacajet. So start off with some black paint. Any black paint will do. I happen to have some Vallejo model color on hand, and going to mix that with equal portions of water to paint. So I use water for my dehumidifier rather than having to go out and buy distilled water. It's much more economical. So one thing you'll find is some of the tutorials you'll see online, they suggest drawing all these lines out or doing a bunch of patterns or lines across. My sort of view on the orks is that they are not nearly that well organized, and they've got someone painting them on square by square, so that's the way I do it as well. So as you can see, I just sort of do them freehand, really loose, not a lot of, I'll go back and fill in a lot of the detail a little bit more, but just nothing to block it all in. That's sort of the reason why I don't like using the decals or drawing it out. Just to me, it doesn't seem very orky. I think I've used one decal in my when the Gorka Morka game first came out, and really was struck how much it doesn't look orky. I mean, the image looks orky, but just doesn't look like it was painted by an orc. It looks like it was put on. So since then I haven't used any of the decals. And this is the kind of thing with practice, it'll get better. You're not looking for perfection the first time through. I find that I wasn't very patient as a younger painter, where I was wanting it to look as good as possible the first time through, and this is definitely not the case. So just take your time. You can go in and feel the details. And using the thinner paint, one, it's nice because it flows off the brush a little bit better, but it does also force you to go back and do a couple coats so you can catch those little mistakes and fill in those things. I'm using the Army Builder Regiment brush there. I like that one for a lot of the painting I do, just because it has it can hold a lot of the paint, especially since I thin it down, so it saves me having to go back and refill the brush on a regular basis. So just go in, catch all the details, little spaces you missed, and then we'll go on to the next color. So what I'm going to do here is for the white, instead of doing it with a white base coat, I actually use a dark or a light gray, and here I'm just, against what I have on hand, I'm using the Vallejo Model Air Deep Sea Gray. Now if this was regular paint, I would have thinned it with water, but because this is airbrush paint that's thinned down already, I didn't really need to. So now you're just going to go in, fill in the other squares, and again, you're not looking for perfection here, you're just looking to fill those spaces in. And you'll find, again, because of the thinness of the paint, although it's got excellent coverage, the Model Air paint, you're still going to need to go over it, and you can see some of the undercoat coming through on that as well. And again, this is just sort of having fun with it. You're not worried about everything being exacting at this point. I find myself painting with the Model Air paints as much as I do with the other ones, just because they're right out of the bottle, they're ready to use. I find that, because again, I like having a thinner paint. Having to mix the other paints all the time is, if I'm just doing something quick, I'll just grab some of the Model Air stuff. And thankfully, and at least in my area, you're beginning to see more and more stores carry it. In Canada, there's only one distributor, and I guess hopefully they're getting a little bit better at bringing them in. I've actually had to order most of my stuff from the UK, but we're seeing more of it in here, which is nice. If I could only get them to get the primer in, that'd be so much nicer. So again, you just want to try to get those corners as sharp as you can. If they're not exact, that's fine. Again, in my mind, an orc is, if it's looking perfect, it's not being too orky. Just fill in the little spaces where you see the undercoat poking through. You can use a finer detail brush to fill in, and actually a little bit later you'll see that as well. I'll go in with a little bit thinner of a brush. But at this point you just want to get the coat as even as possible. Again, being orcs, you don't see some of it come through, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Again, one of the reasons I like doing it this way rather than using the decals is you don't have that constant color. So next up, we're going to do just a little bit of, went back with the black just to clean up, sharpen some of the lines, and try to get the corners as good as possible. Again, you can go back and you're going to go back 2 or 3 times between the two, between the black and the whatever gray you use. And it's funny, you'll sometimes catch stuff. You'll go look at the same area 2 or 3 times, then realize you've missed something. So it doesn't hurt to go through it a couple times. And if you make one area too big, you can always go back and correct it down the road as well. Okay, so now I'm going to take a dark gray. I'm using the model layer gray green. Again, if it was a Citadel paint, I'd be thinning it down. Now I've switched over to one of my my smaller detailing brushes, and what you're going to do is you're going to fill most of the black area with this gray. And what it does, it just gives you that a little bit of depth. It's almost like it's shadowing the black to give you a little bit of more detail. And again, you want to be, at least I find, you don't want to be consistent on the amount of paint you're putting down or the area you're filling. Like if you see I'm filling up, starting in the left and filling up most of the area, I'm leaving a bit of the side. I'm not worried about being too exact, and it gives you, from the distance, it gives you a bit of that depth feel to it. And this stuff actually I could have thinned a little bit better, because the more you thin it, it doesn't go on as even. Like I'm trying to get an inconsistent or different levels here, because if the paint's thin, you're going to see it more of the black come through in some of the areas and others. So I'm looking for that inconsistent consistency. So on to the white again, just because the model layer paint so is handy, and so I use the white. So you're going to go over the light gray now and do the same thing. You're going to basically highlight the light gray sections with the white. And you'll see, just because the way the paint's coming off the brush, you'll see that it's almost going from almost solid white on the very left and fading in, almost like a highlight, or the color's not shifting, but it's not as strong going from the left to the right. And I'm going in and fixing a couple of them as well. I really tried to make sure it was chunky, and you don't want even coats here, because you want some of that gray to come through, as well as you're not filling up the entire area. I try to keep this the same direction when I'm putting the brush down as well, because getting the different directions to me doesn't look as, it seems to take away a little bit from it. And hold it from a distance, because a lot of times when you're painting stuff like this, you're looking at it up close and it doesn't look as good, but you hold it out at arm's distance, you realize it's going to look better. Now in this case as well, it's on the underside of the plane, so unless you're actually picking the model up, you're not going to see this part as well. But it just gives you a good idea of how I do the checkerboard. And from a distance, I think it looks great. So thanks for watching. Part 4, I'm hoping, will be a tactics video. I'm just trying to figure out a few animations in After Effects to clear those up. Please click on subscribe if you want to see more of these videos. I've got a Twitter feed started, which I'm going to start sending out to actually shortly after this is posted. And for those BlackBerry owners, I know there's a few of them out there in the world, scan the barcode to join the Death Head Dice BBM group. I figure, might as well keep some conversations going, so feel free to join into that. And once again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in part 4. Yeah, it's part 4 already. Wow. Thanks again.